Hello and welcome back. It is time for Bonus Magic. I'm Randy Bueller. I'm joined with Magic the Amateuring. How you guys doing?
We're licking our wounds.
Absolutely. We're sort of cowering over here in a corner after that just brutal bashing by the Merfolk deck from the Professor.
Yeah, fair. I will say though, I thought your deck was super sweet. I thought
Thank you.
the All Dogs Go to Heaven flavor, like as far as building a flavorful deck goes, I think you were my favorite of the week.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
Right.
Well, we actually, little known fact, it wasn't actually about flavor for us. It was about the incredible combination of Cathar's Companion and Wrath of God, because it, of course, gets indestructible. So really, that's really the interaction that we were going for.
Yeah.
So it was in there to be Wrath of God. It wasn't like Wrath of Dog.
It was there to help, shepherd all the dogs on their way to heaven.
Yes.
That is what it looked like it was supposed to do there. Yeah, deck was super sweet. I loved it.
We had one squeeze toy, which we didn't get to play either, which I thought was just the cherry on top of this.
How good would that have been against his illusions?
That's very true.
It would have been insane. I was hoping you would. Yeah.
Well, we had lofty ambitions, but I have to say that when he immediately strip mined us, wastelanded us. When he immediately wastelanded us, we were brought back to reality.
Yeah, we knew what was coming, and then
gravity came in and hit us hard.
What was it? Game 2, I was like, Megan, I have a feeling he's playing Force of Will, and she's like, no,
I was like,
he wouldn't.
He wouldn't do that.
He wouldn't.
And then I'm like, what? He wastelanded him? Of course he would.
We certainly got a lesson in what the Professor would and would not do.
Brutal.
To win around Magic. But we didn't by no means have the fastest rounds of the evening just then. It sounds like Wedge just dispatched his opponents on turn 2.
So did Genji.
Yeah, and Kenji.
Oh, that's actually very true. We were sitting in the
Kenji and Wedge both had turn 2 kills. Yeah, no, look, the pairings could not possibly have worked out worse. I mean, I rolled the dice. I actually, pushed the button on random.org. I kind of wish it had turned up differently. I feel like you could take these 10 decks. You could probably build 5 decent pairings out of them. It's like you pair the 4 legacy decks against each other. You pair the flavor decks against each other. Pretty sure the elk lose even against dogs that are trying to go to heaven. But
look, they want to be sacrificed to Angelic Purge so badly.
Yeah, they have a death wish for sure.
And sometimes you got to take down an elk. These things happen. I understand. But yeah, I wish the pairings had turned out differently. We could have had. But I gotta say, I enjoyed the last couple hours. I thought this was a fun night anyway.
Oh, it was so great to see all of the different decks that people brought to the table. I didn't know that there were so many lands with elk in them.
Yeah. The elk lands were so great.
We told that story. It's worth retelling though. Marshall actually built his elk deck in his own personal account because the 4 of accounts we get from Wizards, you only have 4 copies of each basic land. He couldn't get the right basic lands into his WotC account, so had to go trading his way. He had to trade for Rowans, had to trade for the forests that have elk in the picture. I love that story. It's
absolutely. If only someone had let the bots know beforehand, they could have upped their prices, knowing that demand was about to come surging in.
If they had got wind of that on our emails,
Absolutely.
The stock market would have crashed.
Well, we're about to get to see a couple of the decks that we didn't get to see a whole bunch of in those early rounds, which is going to include Paul's deck, correct?
Yeah, Paul versus Aaron is the bonus magic that we've got queued up for you guys. So Paul's Druids, he got to play, it's just a 105 card Druid deck.
Whoa.
We got to see some of it against the Affinity deck that Loading Ready Run brought to the table this time around. Like, he held him off with Elephant Grass for a while, but he kind of flooded game 1. He couldn't draw any enchantments in game 2. This is basically an Enchantress deck that... all the enchantresses happen to be Druids. It's like, 35 Druids, 33 enchantments. It kind of works out at 105 that he's able to do everything that he wants to do. I thought, like, from a mechanical point of view and from a, attacking the format in a clever way point of view, I really like this deck.
Absolutely, and props to him for the incredible card count in here. I feel like going beyond 60 is it's really giving up life for your art.
I mean, sometimes you just can't make a cut, you know?
Sometimes you can't make 45 cuts.
Well, it turns out you had to play at least 75 cards just to get into the bonus magic. The bonus match had a minimum, and if we look at Aaron Forsythe's deck, he's also going, shall we say, above and beyond. His werewolf deck has 75 cards in it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And with so many great werewolves, how could you not?
I mean, what are you going to cut? This list is just gold after gold.
It's a best hits list by the band Werewolves, as produced by Wizards of the Coast.
I'd listen to that.
You have to play the one Lycanthrope, right? You have to play a Blood Moon in your werewolf deck.
Absolutely you do. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without Arlen Cord.
Yep.
Agreed.
Bringing it up. Planeswalker, Werewolf,
I want to see
Trailblazer.
Moon Mist happen. Moon Mist is the card I want to see happen. That seems like...
Transform
Times.
all humans. Okay, yeah, I mean, I would watch I would watch that. All non-werewolves and wolves. Oh.
Are you discovering something over here? I believe Maria is.
I'm trying to read my notes on Moon Mist, but my handwriting's very bad. Prevent all damage. Okay, yeah, this card seems sweet.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah,
So-
I do also wish we'd gotten to see a little more of the Girlfriend Brackets deck. They didn't get to play very many turns of Magic, but they had already vanished from our chat by the time we got around to scheduling bonus Magic, so...
Absolutely.
Yeah, they chose horrors, and that was actually what Megan and I initially wanted to pick.
Oh, right! How did they choose horrors and not even have a thing in the ice?
No idea.
We were so excited about it. But luckily, the fact that they chose it out from under us meant that we got to fall back on hounds.
Yeah, all dogs go to heaven specifically.
Yes.
Did you have a horror deck already sketched out?
We did, actually.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
From a couple of weeks ago. From the minute you announced Tribal, we were like, wouldn't horrors be cool?
Like Sultai horrors.
Exactly, but not every good idea is unique. That's a saying, right?
It is now.
That's definitely not a saying.
But then we decided that we would go for a double flavor win and try and recreate a movie through our tribe, and that's where All Dogs Go to Heaven came from.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like we are ready to see these werewolves versus these druids.
Hello and welcome! It is time for bonus magic! Aaron Forsythe playing a werewolf deck. Paul Cheon playing a druid deck. We wanted to make sure you guys got a chance to see these decks, so we put this match together. Let us see how this is going to go.
Absolutely. And Randy, do you have one of these decks that you believe is favored over the other? They're both very creature-based. Obviously, as it charms.
I think I like Paul's late game a little better. I mean, I think that he's the one who can kind of quote-unquote go off. The thing is, though, Paul goes off. He doesn't actually go very far. Like, there's a lot of going. There's not a lot of off. It's not really building to some dramatic conclusion other than I'm going to steal all your lands, which, with Elephant Grass makes it kind of hard on Aaron. I mean, I'm confident if Paul does actually manage to draw a bunch of cards off Enchantresses, he'll get far enough ahead that he'll find a way to win. But, yeah.
I mean, I want to see it. It would definitely be sweet. He's got a lot of cards to draw. Make sure he doesn't deck himself with the 95 still left in there.
Yes, we're going to see really what he's capable of. And if that includes winning, excellent. And if it includes just doing a lot of really cool things before finally succumbing to a bunch of attacking werewolves,
I'll take that.
We'll take that as well.
Right.
One of my favorite limited cards over there hitting the battlefield.
Gyre Reach Bandit. This is a new Shadows over Innistrad card, which has haste, and it is a werewolf that transforms. Is this the one that, if it's transformed, then other werewolves that enter the battlefield automatically transform?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, Paul's got one Enchantress, which is a good start. He'd like to get multiple Enchantresses so that every enchantment draws him multiple cards. He's got Miri's Guile to start digging. He does not have any reshuffle effects. We saw him see a lot of extra cards via fetch land Mirigile in the previous match, but he's just kind of drawn off the top here. Oh, he's got a reshuffle with Green Sun Zenith, so he gets one reshuffle there.
Very neat. And I believe that he has a couple of copies of Green Sun Zenith, if not the full 4 in there. So he's got some opportunities to shuffle cards back in.
It's funny. It's almost a bad beat that Aaron is matched up against a guy with a bunch of basic lands in his deck. That Blood Moon is just staring out of his hand, looking over at Basic Forest, going, Basic Forest? Really?
Exactly. Well, it's really going to get that Savannah.
Yes.
That single copy of Savannah is going to be such a mountain in just a moment.
Turning off the Caracas isn't completely irrelevant, right?
No, not at all. And we see that Paul is casting a Green Sun Zenith. He cast it for 2.
Very nice.
Wild growth.
Second Argothian Enchantress in play. Now the Wild Growth is going to let him draw multiple cards and fresh cards because of the reshuffle. Oh, send a message. Attack with a
Exactly.
No message. 2 enchantments in hand, one of which has the Enchantress effect baked into it. This is the mix, right? This is Paul getting a mix of creatures, lands, and enchantments.
Absolutely. It's definitely what his deck wants to be seeing. And, he is far from dead with the current board that Aaron is trying to develop here.
I mean, I'm up. I think Paul's way ahead. The thing is, Aaron can start to put together a powerful board, but Elephant Grass is going to slow down Aaron's ability to attack by so much that I think we get to see Paul's deck do its thing.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And he's just up so many cards, both already permanents on the battlefield and cards in hand. It's hard to see how Aaron's going to be able to really develop a board that's going to be able to get past all of these creatures, though they're so small.
I mean, I think
there are many of them.
His plan needs to be, he needs to have his wolves have trample, and he just needs to pay the cost for getting them in, and just smash face.
All right.
We see a Utopia Sprawl here, which is yet another enchantment.
Yeah, that's what Mirigile found on top of the deck. He decided to play that before the Enchantress's presence because he wants to get his max value out of Arbor Elf. He's more pinched on mana than he is on cards right here. Verdurn Enchantress, sure.
And all of these enchantments on this forest are just allowing that Arbor Elf to really do over time.
Sarah's Sanctum. Speaking of lands that tap for a bunch of mana, Sarah's Sanctum, the, kid sister of Tolarian Academy, taps for a W for every enchantment that you have in play.
Whoa!
Oh my goodness. Well, Blood Moon is going to hopefully be able to come down and prevent too many shenanigans on the part of Tolarian Academy's kid sister.
I just hope all the land enchantments keep going on that one forest right there.
At least right now, it certainly makes sense as it allows that Arbor Elf.
Elephant Grass throws off 5 draw card triggers. Now we see why Paul has 105 cards. It's just so he doesn't deck himself.
This is awesome.
And he has to move to cleanup, so he doesn't even get to make full use of all of these cards in hand. He's drawing more resources than he can possibly use in a single turn right now.
He didn't really need 5 lands in his hand.
I mean, what's he saving up for?
Who knows? Hopefully, as he continues to develop not only his permanents on board, but also that particular forest that Arbor Elf can untap, he's going to be able to play all of the cards that he's drawing in a single turn. We should start a Paul's permanent count. To keep track of exactly how many permanents Paul has on the battlefield.
Aaron decides to move into the enchantment business himself.
Absolutely.
Sarah's Sanctum is no longer quite so ridiculous.
Nope, now it's a mountain, which is a reasonable card. It allows you to cast red spells.
Paul, of course, going to upkeep Elephant Grass. Aaron paying to attach with Gyre Reach Bandit.
I mean, you gotta pay.
Yeah, he needs to attack with something. Do you think Paul will be able to play any spells, or are those werewolves going to flip?
I feel like he's just so strapped on cards right now. He only has 8 cards in hand, which is 1 over the maximum hand size. So I'm a little bit worried about Paul's ability to play a spell this turn.
How about Sterling
like he's
Grove
gonna
that
make
draws
it.
5? Oh, he found one.
Oh, excellent.
Sterling
excellent.
Grove
Good.
could both draw 5 cards and also give him the ability to tutor up the enchantment of his dreams.
Of course. And Aaron over there, if he is ever able to flip the werewolves by not playing something on his own turn, I think Paul is going to prove to be more than capable of turning all those wolves back over.
These wolves are humans, straight up.
Absolutely.
They thought they were going to be getting in there.
Yes. What
They were wrong.
what we have yet to see from Paul is a way to win this game.
Well,
Right.
I mean,
He's certainly
Oh,
drawing
jeez.
cards, which is a beautiful way to win a game.
Did you see what he got with the Sterling Grove?
No, what did he get?
Solitary confinement.
And tell
Well-
us, Randy, what does solitary confinement do?
It says your opponent doesn't get to have any more fun.
I think that is the legal text on the card.
This Oracle text says your opponent is not allowed to have any more fun.
Yeah, it says skip your draw step, because why does Paul need to bother using his draw step to draw cards?
No,
You can't be the target of spells or abilities, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to you.
What?
Period. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. Period. It does have at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you discard a card. So the idea is supposed to be that you don't get to draw any cards, but you have to discard cards to upkeep it. So eventually you run out of cards and it goes away, right? Is that what's going to happen here? Or go to
that
the Enchantress.
does not
Still
seem
thinking about
what's
sending
going to
messages.
happen.
Ooh, he
All
was
right,
Go to
sending
the
it on one.
Enchantress. Sending a message. Love it.
Oh, it's a
Really
1-2.
getting in there. And if you'll notice, Paul now has 65 cards in his library.
Paul, you better hurry up.
Well, he also does have those Green Sun Zenith, which, as long as he's casting them, are going to be able to go back into his deck, making sure that he isn't going to lose by milling himself.
Well, some of the Enchantress draws are mandatory, so he can actually
Oh, that's true.
deck himself.
He does not have enough Green Sun Zenith to prevent all of those mandatory Enchantress draws.
Well, Aaron's putting up the good fight over there. Still playing.
I think he's
creatures.
waiting to see a victory condition, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I think Aaron is playing the game of let's
Show
see
me.
if Paul can actually win this game as opposed to prevent me from winning it for forever, which they're not the same thing as much as sometimes I wish that they were.
Megan, a blue player at heart.
I really am. We see, unfortunately, I believe Paul just discarded one of my favorite cards from the Theros block, which was Eidolon of Blossoms,
Oh,
which
so
for
good.
2 green was a 2/2 that when it or another enchantment entered the battlefield, you got to draw a card. It had Constellation.
Again, he doesn't really want to draw more cards.
No,
That's
I
him.
understand
He's
why
pumping
he
the brakes a
discarded
little bit. Like, the engine is revving. Just gonna pump it just gently, and there's the key card.
Oh, are we looking at...
Hello.
Whoa!
Well, now we're
Where
looking
did
at...
all the lands go?
And provided that he doesn't deck before it happens, he also has a Heliod, another card
Yeah.
that comes from the Theros block, which also makes a bunch of 2/1s.
Guiltleaf Archdruid is the card that Paul used to steal all of Aaron's lands. The
Excellent.
one of, which he put in the deck just so that he could Green Sun Zenith for it after he's drawn a billion cards and steal all of his opponent's land.
Guiltleaf Archdruid, a card from before Maria and I's time. We have yet
I'm not sure it had a time. Like, there's no way its time actually includes Guiltleaf Archdruid. Like, there's probably some commander group somewhere that just lives in permanent fear of the one guy who has this deck. But it was never really a thing.
Yeah. Well, Randy, Guiltleaf Archdruid's time is now.
It's now.
Paul
Yeah,
is
true.
giving
I think
it
this is-
time.
This is the peak moment in Guiltleaf Archdruid's career.
Isn't that really what Community Super League is all about? Bringing those unwanted cards, giving them a home, finally.
Isn't that what Commander is about?
Are we just watching a Commander match without Commander?
He's got 105 cards. Yes.
It's true. We are. That's Paul's trick in this match right here, is that he has in fact brought a Commander deck to the table.
Oh, he figured out the meta big time.
And here we felt bad for Paul not getting to play. Apparently, he was on Team Broken the whole time.
Paul is playing enough Magic for both this match and the one that he lost earlier. He's really getting all of the Magic in.
Aaron did get with his Werewolves finally.
Yeah,
well, with no lands to cast anything on his turn.
That lonely little blood moon sitting back there.
It's sort of like, hey, everybody, I affect lands, so I'll go ahead and I'll hold their spot until they come back.
So sad. Is Paul just going to attack with his elves? I mean, is that...
I guess.
Heliod maybe is the win con?
Yeah, I mean, if you need to, you can go wide with Heliod.
Absolutely, you can make yourself some...
Oh, Sigil of the Empty Throne, that's what you do. You go to the air. Solitaire, that particular copy of Sterling Grove tutored up Sigil of the Empty Throne.
Oh, excellent. So he's going to be able to fly over Aaron's lonely werewolves over there.
That does appear to be the plan.
I mean, if you're a werewolf, aren't you just by definition probably lonely?
Well, they are part wolf, right? So they are, I believe that wolves run in packs. And by I believe, I mean it's a fact.
It's science.
It is a thing that is known.
Do you know that I once played a match where somebody played Sigil of the Empty Throne in what was it, a pre-release against me, and they had the complete enchantment deck, and they played Sigil of the Empty Throne and made like 6 angels. It was crazy.
That's amazing. Sigil of the Empty Throne. It's one of the rares that you weren't necessarily thrilled to open.
No.
Back in, was it Magic Origins that this card originally happened? For 3 white, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get to put a 4/4 white angel into play. And Paul, it seems, still has some enchantments to cast.
Oh, he does. He hasn't run out yet. Oblivion Ring is a pretty good enchantment.
Oh boy, it seems good.
So his enchantments are now draw 5 and make a 4/4.
I think if all enchantments said that, I'd be a lot more likely to play them.
And this is because he pumped the brakes and stopped playing enchantresses. Like, he's at 30 cards in his library. If he was playing a 60-card deck, he would have killed himself by now.
He would have killed himself ages ago.
Yeah, when you're driving a race car, you don't necessarily want to drive it right into the wall.
But it looks like he is going to be able to make enough angels to kill Aaron before he mills himself out here.
I mean, if Aaron had some sort of Mind Slaver, I believe Paul could kill himself this turn. We just need like a 1-turn word of command.
Absolutely, where Aaron would be able to make the decisions for Paul drawing cards.
That would be actually really amazing if Paul managed to lose this game. It'd probably be more exciting than what's happening right now. Where
this is pretty exciting. Like, how many permanents does he have?
I don't know. We didn't keep up with our Paul's permanent count.
I think the number is a quadrillion.
Yes. Mathematically, I believe that is.
There's only 31 cards left in his library. Oh, he Oblivion Ringed the Blood Moon, so he can have Terra's Sanctum for 17.
Oh, 17. A very reasonable amount of mana for a land to produce.
It's just, Heliod needed to make a whole bunch of soldiers.
Of course. Well,
clerics.
Those elves were getting lonely.
He also has 4/4 angels right now.
Only 4?
How many different tribes?
Only 4 angels.
So how many different tribes is he playing? He's like a druid, cleric, angel, elf deck right now?
That appears to be it, as well as Heliod, his legendary godliness over there.
Sure.
How do you feel about his deck flavor-wise, Randy? Do you think it's a win, or do you think it's a loss?
It's a win for me. It's 105 cards.
How can you have this many permanents on the battlefield and not have it be a win?
Well, here's the thing. Flavor isn't the word I think we should be using. Like, for me, I want to see sweet decks. For me, the Brewmaster Standings is about just show me something awesome. And maybe it's awesome because it's flavorful. Like Gabby's Triskaidekaphobia deck was all about the flavor in the 13s. But, like, this deck is sweet. Gabby's deck this week, I think, not flavorful, but still sweet.
Absolutely.
Like, she managed to have an obscure tribe do a sweet thing without being like one of the degenerate legacy combos. Like, I give her full credit for that. Maybe it's not flavorful, but it was sweet. And
Paul is certainly using a surprising tribe to do a very sweet thing.
Yeah, I love it.
So in the brewmaster pot, we're putting in flavor, we're putting in sweetness, and we're putting in random weird stuff.
Exactly.
That sounds like a pretty good soup to me.
Paul taking down this game against Aaron's Werewolves.
Yeah, all the creatures turn red, and then Aaron pushes the concede button.
No sideboards, notably,
Of course.
in these matchups.
All right. Will the Werewolves get to do anything?
One of my very favorite enchantments ever, Raised by Wolves, there in Aaron's hand. Not sure if he'll keep that hand, but great enchantment.
Unfortunately, it looks like he did not. But now he has a hand with a couple of hits from the current Shadows over Innistrad set. Both Duskwatch Recruiter, which for 1 and a green is a 2/2. That for 2 and a green, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library and choose a creature from amongst them. And again, a Lambhold Pacifist,
Nice
which
curve.
for 1 and a green is that 3/3, which he did not get to do a lot of attacking with in his match against Kenji. Hopefully it sees a little bit more action in this game against
Yeah,
Paul.
if he's able to go Lambholt into Immerwolf, which I think...
Absolutely, because it gives the other wolves +1/+1. Again, Lambhold Pacifist is going to be a 4/4, and it
Check
sees itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he needs a land for that, though.
That's true. Although he's
also
now played his ramp as opposed to playing out the Lambhold Pacifist. Aaron chose to play the 1/1 that can tap to add a green to his mana pool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Paul's draw is kind of sketchy. Like, he mulliganed once, so you definitely keep 6 cards, Miri's Guile, a mix of land and elves, but he has no enchantresses. Like, the engine requires him to be drawing cards every time he plays an enchantment, and he can't really do that yet. I mean, I guess he can Sterling Grove for Enchantress's Presence as the super slow way to bootstrap that engine. But mostly he's hoping Miri's Guile can find him a better mix of stuff.
Absolutely. Not only that, but next turn he's left his Dryad Arbor as the land he has yet to play, which means that next turn he's not going to be able to actually play a land that's immediately useful to him, as it's going to have Summoning Sickness and won't be able to tap.
Yeah, the downside of crazy combo decks is when they don't have their crazy combo, they're just a bunch of random elves.
Druids.
Druids.
Sometimes elf druids.
Of course, many of them are elf druids. Elves, it seems, very taken to druidry.
Green Sun Zenith came off the top.
There you go.
Presumably thanks to Miri's Guile.
Excellent. So that means that Paul is going to be able to search for whatever card he determines is going to...
I'm going to guess Argothian Enchantress.
I would think.
I'm a little scared about making a prediction in the 105 card deck, but...
There's so many options, but it does seem like he's going to start trying to get that combination online.
Yeah, I guess he can Enchantress, then Sterling Grove, draw a card. Yeah, there's Argothian Enchantress. She is the cheapest of the Enchantresses. And Dryad Arbor gets through its Summoning Sickness.
On the other side of the table, Aaron has drawn a 3rd land, which means that he's now got 4 mana available to him. So we'll see if he's going to choose to develop his board some creatures. There comes the Duskwatch Recruiter, which is a 3/3. And the Lambhold Pacifist, which is a 4/4.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Yeah,
he knows he's racing. Aaron knows he just needs to put as much power on the board as quickly as possible. Paul hasn't stitched things together quite as quickly. Paul's on the draw this game. He's a little bit on his back foot. These next couple turns are going to determine this game.
It might just be the slim opening that Aaron needs. It's the cracked door that the werewolf has gotten its paws into.
Common nightmare I have every night.
It does look, though, like Paul is drawing a couple of enchantments, so he is going to be able to start drawing more cards and developing his board a little bit more. On the other hand, Aaron does have a whole lot of power staring back at him.
Yeah, this feels close to me. It's going to depend how well what Paul's deck does as he cantrips his way through these enchantments. So Enchantress's Presence let him draw 1 card. Miri's Guile is now going to let him draw 2. All future enchantments are 2. Oblivion Ring.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
And another Enchantress, though I'm not sure he has the double white. Oh, he hasn't played a land yet, so Savannah gives him double white. Interesting.
Absolutely.
He could Oblivion Ring. He could develop his board for next turn with the Mesa Enchantress.
He is going to choose to Oblivion Ring, though, and it looks like we'll see when it comes into play what he chooses to target.
Yeah, I think he feels decent. He just needs to not get run over. Although that is the last enchantment out of his hand. He drew a couple elves off of Oblivion Rings, so he's out of gas. He does get to look at 3 cards with Miri's Guile, so he's likely to draw an enchantment next turn.
Mm-hmm. Taking that Lord does mean that the Lambhold Pacifist can't attack because, once again, it doesn't see any other 4/4s on the board. So it's a little bit of a 2-for-1 taking that Oblivion.
You say that, but...
That's true. There could be a werewolf coming our way.
Or perhaps an instant to transform all humans.
There they go.
Flip everybody over. Paul is now very happy he Oblivion Ringed the Emberwolf. Because how much more damage would that have been, right?
Absolutely. And that Lambhold Pacifist, now a Lambhold Butcher.
And the Butcher gives him the discount he needs to get his Daybreak Ranger down this turn. Crazy. Only 5 triggers.
The Crownhold Howler, the other side of the Duskwatch Recruiter.
Oh, that's what I mean.
Which gives all of your creature spells in your hand, they are 1 generic mana less to cast.
Let's see if Paul can find any more enchantments here to fuel his race car that drives on enchantments.
Survey says yes. And not just any enchantment either. He should play Mesa Enchantress first, right?
Tell us which, again, Mesa Enchantress, being another card before our time, what does that one do?
The same thing all the other Enchantresses do. It's a 3 mana O2. That's the exciting part.
Oh, yes, 3 mana O2s.
And then it has the Enchantress text of whenever you play an enchantment, draw a card. So he leads with, he found Solitary Confinement. Seriously, Paul?
Oh, that's the worst.
So Aaron able to get Paul down to 8, but things are starting to look a little rough.
Yeah, that was 8 through an Oblivion Ring, too.
Yeah, there's really nothing that Aaron can do other than hope that Paul decks himself.
Well, I mean, saw he does have that Sigil of the Empty Throne to hopefully get in all the damage that he needs to before that happens. Randy, do you think that there's a sequence of cards that Paul could possibly draw that are going to keep him from winning?
If we could stack Paul's deck so that it had no enchantments on top of it for the next 20 cards, then eventually Solitary Confinement would go away.
All right, so that's what Aaron has to be over there crossing his fingers for.
One enchantment in the top 20 cards is probably good enough. And I'm
There's one now.
I'm not even convinced Aaron wins that game if we stack Paul's deck, but
yeah, that would be the first stumble in perhaps a series, but that does seem very unlikely considering the number of enchantments that Paul has.
I mean, the other question is, does Aaron have any way to blow up a Solitary Confinement? I haven't studied Aaron's deck list to see if he's got anything that can,
He does not, no.
I think that Aaron went very flavorful with this Werewolves deck, and it's all about attacking. It's, enchantments cannot be cared for. You cannot take the time.
Don't waste your time.
No.
Oh, funny. Paul let the Solitary Confinement go because he knew he could see that he could draw another one.
Oh.
And I'm sure that's got to be a little bit disheartening for Aaron over there.
Yeah, Aaron with no cards in his hand
and knowing that Paul doesn't need to bother keeping that Solitary Confinement around because he's about to play another one that's going to also draw him a couple of cards.
You know what's kind of fun is that perhaps we have spawned some new legacy decks in this tonight's Community Super League.
Or perhaps some commander decks for people who would really like to go and prey upon all of their unsuspecting friends.
So was I supposed to send out a memo sort of pigeonholing power level on these decks? Look, I've totally enjoyed this week, but at the same time, the Magic has been kind of lopsided. Like, we could have just picked tribes that can't be thoroughly abused and made you draft those, or is it just whatever? This has been fun anyway.
I know that we really had a great time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Playing this week.
Building our deck was a ton of fun. I think it's just a question of how people interpret Tribal Wars. It seemed half of us interpret it as just have some fun with a wacky deck, and the other half were being pretty competitive. So I think it's just, if we could just all get closer to the same page, that might be a little better.
Right now, some people are reading from the front of the book, and others are reading from the back.
Yep.
Yeah, I was talking with Gabby a little bit in the pregame show. Like, in putting the formats together, I thought of it kind of like a reality TV show, where, like, I didn't want to script it. Like, it doesn't want to be scripted entertainment. It wants to be, let's see what these people do. We got all these awesome people and threw them in a room together, and let's see what happens, right?
Absolutely. And with Maria and I, you can never script it because we're horrible memorizers.
Yeah. No.
We really cannot be depended upon to try and remember something.
Oh, if this was the Big Brother house version of Community Super League, Megan, who would you be voting off first?
Myself.
What?
I would
You don't want to be in that house?
You know, when you put it like that, if you're saying it's a Community Super League, I'm very happy to be here. If you were saying that I was inside of a Big Brother
Yes, we're
house,
all in the house together.
Wow, you guys.
It's just like, the 15 or so Community Super League people in the house together.
That's true. That's true. You all are very delightful, and I would vote myself off in order to avoid voting anyone else off.
Oh, that's so
I
nice.
couldn't do it.
It's not because the professor hogs the shower every morning.
He has to maintain that hair somehow.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It doesn't just happen naturally. So Aaron over there, still fighting the good fight as best he can, hoping, not even hoping, working towards getting more creatures in his hand with that Duskwatch Recruiter.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least that's something that he has on the battlefield that's doing some work for him right now. It's kind of neat that we're seeing these two decks get another chance to play some more games, too, because everybody out there who's watching has a chance to vote in the Brewmaster standings about which deck they think is the sweetest from this week. Megan and I currently tied for last, hint, hint. So
You got such a bad beat last week. You got dealt the Thing in the Ice mirror match. It was
Absolutely.
like both you and Wedge, I feel like, got punished because you were randomly paired against each other with similar decks.
that's so funny because we didn't know the pairings were random, so we're like, oh, he must have wanted to see the two Thing in the Ice decks go at it.
Exactly.
I hope that Aaron with the salt. That's perfect.
Accurate.
Absolutely.
I would hope this week's pairings are evidence that I'm not doing this on purpose. The only way we could possibly have gotten pairings this bad is randomly.
Just to give me the email of random.org and I will email them.
Look, we have a problem.
Excuse me, randomizer, I'd like to talk to you about your randomness.
Sylvan Library, sure. Paul needs more ability to control his draws.
Well, there's always now the opportunity that with the Sylvan Library, which it allows you to draw, I believe, 2 extra cards, correct?
Yeah.
But then you have to pay life in order to keep
low
them.
cost of 4 life per.
Absolutely.
Paul's life total is not divisible by 4, however, so he's not going to die to a misclick.
That's
Like, if he was on 8, Sylvan Library is a terrifying card. You could just accidentally kill yourself.
So Aaron, might be able to see Paul put himself to 2 on accident with Sylvan Library.
Which is sort of a moral victory in this.
Maybe even on purpose.
Yeah.
That's true. If Paul decides that he just does not have enough cards in hand.
This seems like a deck you want to play, Megan.
Paul's deck?
Yes.
If I were playing some Canadian Highlander, it might look something like this. I could see that.
Nice. Wow, this does look like a sweet Canadian Highlander deck.
It kind of would be. I don't know. I would probably throw some more enchantments in there just to spice things up a bit.
Just because.
Well, you don't get as many enchantresses, right? You only get 1 copy of each enchantress.
Yeah.
But there's like half a dozen of them, and if you have enough ways to get them, maybe you can make it work.
Oh, that would actually be pretty fun. And we've been talking about getting Canadian Highlander decks, so
I'll put this on my list.
put it on the list.
For some reason, Maria, I feel like it's not going to be quite your flavor
No,
of deck.
not quite. I prefer to win honestly by bashing your face in with creatures.
How humdrum of you.
Yeah.
I have to say that I've been trying to keep up with the cards that Paul is drawing, and I just absolutely can't.
I mean, his hand size is now so ridiculous that it needs to be scrolled through.
Absolutely. He has 20 cards in hand.
I don't know if I've ever had that many cards in Magic Online, or in real life for that matter.
I think I did. No, I don't know. I was thinking back even to the days of like Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, I lived through the 90s, so I'll stay out of this conversation.
You've seen it all.
Like, how many cards in my library? Okay, Stroke of Genius for one less than that.
Oh man, those must have been the days. Or was it terrible? Was it awesome or was it terrible?
It was awesome for the first couple of weeks, and then you were like, how could they possibly do these cards? Kind of terrible. Then they banned everything eventually.
Yeah.
With time. We all learn.
Like the process of
there goes
figuring out how broken those cards were was kind of hilarious. I have told this story a couple times, but we were testing for Pro Tour, and Tolarian Academy was in the same deck as Time Spiral, and so we found that like, oh, okay, you can Time Spiral, untap your Academy. You have just crazy amounts of mana, but we barely knew the spoiler. Like the cards were just getting leaked, so our deck just summoned giant Mahamoti Djinns and attacked with 5 power flyers. Like, oh, there's Stroke of Genius in the set too? Wait a minute.
Absolutely.
We can actually just kill people with all this mana.
I know that on Reddit this week, someone posted like a price list from Once Upon a Time when Shivan Dragon was more expensive than Power 9 cards.
Sure.
Because why would you want to play an artifact that taps for mana when you could attack someone with a dragon?
That was it kind of sort of like Wild West back then when you're going around and you're like, oh, we've got to break these decks and find these combos, just kind of having that exciting feeling of discovery.
Yeah, it was. It was great. It's the feeling of just actually breaking it wide open and then going and winning the tournament because you broke it wide open it's fun. I recommend it.
We'll try.
Yeah, it doesn't come up as much anymore, but
yeah.
Still comes up sometimes.
It does. I mean, we got to see a little bit of that with the Eldrazi decks at the Modern
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Every once in a while, we're still given the opportunity to make something very broken.
And I think that's what you want, right? I mean, R&D, I want you to do a good job and not break things too much, but every once in a while, maybe a tiny little crack in the china. That's all I ask.
I've said many times that my favorite Magic card is Treasure Cruise because it happened during our time, but it let me feel like what it was like to cast Ancestral Recall.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was like, oh, everybody, I really understand it now. I understand the feeling, and boy, is it ever a feeling.
Paul has once again stolen all of Aaron's lands because that's just what he does. Now Mirari's way. Good grief! How much mana can he generate now? It might be triple digits.
Once again, it's several trillion mana.
Yeah, several
approximately.
Is the official count. And he has his sigil, both his sigil of the Empty Throne and his Heliod out, which, as we saw in the last game, are some very potent win conditions for his deck. Heliod making a bunch of 2/1s, and Sigil of the Empty Throne, of course, making a bunch of 4/4 angels whenever he plays an enchantment.
So Mirari's Wake is 3 green-white creatures you control +1/+1, which may be relevant since now they can attack for some damage. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. So yeah, 1 jillion mana.
I'm sorry I ever doubted you, Paul. This deck clearly wins once it gets going.
Of course.
The Elephant Grass steal all your lands combo is the part of this that just seems the craziest. It's actually super elegant as a way to prevent the opponent from killing you. You have to pay to attack me, but I stole all your lands. Okay, now I'll kill you at my leisure.
Exactly. It's like the opposite of the stop hitting yourself sibling strategy. Which is, why aren't you hitting me? Why aren't you hitting me?
Well, it's only a matter of time now.
Exactly. I would imagine a very short matter of time.
Hopefully you guys out there enjoyed your bonus round. I was happy to get to see Paul's deck do its thing. I feel like Aaron's deck's kind of sweet, but did not get the chance to do its thing.
Agreed.
Yeah, this is sweet. I mean, we didn't get to see Paul's deck go off, and so I'm really happy we got the chance to watch this nonsense happen. Aaron, of course, got the short end of the stick again. Here, he made a very fair, very honest deck. as something which we now know Paul is not interested in.
Aaron was playing werewolves, but he threw himself to the wolves yet again.
Indeed.
Is it
by
possible to
agreeing
get
play.
Aaron salty enough that he crosses over into some other spice?
I don't know what comes after
cardamom.
I don't know what comes after salt, but like he's clearly overloaded.
He's clearly going to be the cumin of
perhaps even
magic
the
players.
paprika. Dare I say it?
Paprika cannot have more flavor than salt. I've never been impressed by paprika.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not
Paprika is
kidding.
my favorite spice.
What?
This is why we have the brewmaster vote. People have to decide what they actually care. What's the right flavor? What's the mix of?
I'm like being 100% serious.
You know, it's my fault. I briefly forgot that you grew up in Minnesota. Aaron is here making, he tries to make a last-ditch attack, but of course he can't.
There's an elephant breath buried under there.
Oh,
Absolutely.
boy.
He is not allowed to. He tries to valiantly sacrifice his creatures, and they say, no, you may not do that.
Paul, only 16 cards left in his library. Doesn't matter, but...
Once
So
again,
low
he would die to a word of command. Just play all those enchantments and deck yourself. Word of command, Mindslaver. Lots of cards could get Aaron out of this.
Absolutely. If only he had the mana to cast a Mindslaver here.
be sweet.
It really would. And very surprising considering the current state of the battlefield.
Yeah, it would be quite a shock.
I would be very curious as to how he orchestrated that.
Werewolves and Mindslaver. I mean, if you think about it, once you get infected with the whatever, disease makes you a werewolf, is in your mind really a slave?
I can't pronounce it.
Lycanthrope?
Lycanthrope?
Lycanthropism?
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's definitely the medical term for it.
Thank goodness there's now a vaccine.
Aaron is going to go ahead and make some blocks here.
Good for you, Aaron. You're good for you. Fighting the good fight.
I just don't know that it's going to get him there.
Gabby's got the record, right? What was it, minus 112?
Yeah, minus 122.
122, minus 122. Oh,
only
Gabby's record stands.
48.
Paul only overkills by 48. But Paul got to show off what his deck does, so get the Johnny moment in the sun.
We got to see so many permanents on the battlefield.
That's a lot of permanents.
Have we released what we will be playing next week, what the format coming up is, Randy?
Yes, Brewers Challenge. So there's actually a vote. I collected nominations all week on Twitter of what cards, and you can look at this one of two ways. It can either be what cards you want to see the Community Super League brew around, or what cards you want to force the Community Super League to have to play with for next week. Up to the viewer which way you want to see that. But yeah, if you go to communitysuperleague.com, you can vote. These are going to be standard decks, so all the cards on the poll are from standard. That will should keep our power level in a sort of a somewhat more narrow band.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I'll look at the vote. We'll leave it up for another day and make sure people on YouTube also have a chance to chip in their 2 cents worth, and then the league members will be drafting those cards. So, do you want to build around Hedron alignment? Do you want to build around Brain in a Jar?
I really do want to build around Hedron alignment.
You're crazy. It can't be done.
Maria, I suppose it'll be whichever one of us gets to that drafting email first.
Because I'm going all in on Gitrog Monster, Megan, if I see that email first.
Gitrog Monster's on the list to vote on. Hedron alignment has been doing very well. I mean, so at this point, it's like, okay, pick the 10 cards. So I'll take the top off the list. People will draft them, reverse order standings. I think that should be a sweet format. I mean, it's going to be nice to watch people sort of brewing and sort of figuring out what they can put together. And you can't build, none of these cards are staple standard cards, obviously. I took anything that had shown up at the Pro Tour off the list. Demonic Pact, people are like, Brillo Run Demonic. We've already seen Demonic Pact. It's been done.
You can see Demonic Pact have its time in the Vintage Super League on Tuesdays, if you would like to see that card in action.
So yeah, Brewers Challenge is the format we've got queued up for next week.
It's really fun, too, because a lot of the Community Super League members are streamers. A lot of us have been sort of brewing on stream, and working with people in our chats to kind of maximize our deck lists. And I think that's been kind of neat. We've done it. I've seen Gabby do it. You said you watched Kenji play out his deck from this week. So that's another fun way everybody watching can interact with the Community Super League too, is catch us streaming and brewing up our deck for the next week's challenge.
Exactly. You can have a little bit of input into some of these crazy decks that you're seeing here, whether you want to be held responsible or not.
Yeah. Oh.
I think that is going to do it for week 3. Tune in, same time, same place next week. I like this new 5 o'clock start time. This feels better for everybody's time zones, I think.
Yeah, so in the middle of the country, we appreciate it.
Yeah. We're going to stick with the new 5 o'clock start time, 8 o'clock Eastern. But yeah, tune in next Thursday. We'll have Brewers Challenge Community Super League. I'm very curious to see what everybody comes up with. Hope you guys are too. We will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.